Hi there everyone, Dan Dix here, reporting for Press for Truth. Today is Saturday, March the 14th, 2015. We're currently out front of the Art Gallery in downtown Vancouver to cover the nationwide rally to raise awareness about Bill C-51.
It is a radical expansion of the powers of our national security agencies. It is not sound security policy, and it represents a real danger to every single Canadian. Now, the government has admitted it doesn't even know if these new legal measures would have done anything to have prevented the tragic killings in Ottawa and Quebec. That's no surprise, because there's no credible evidence whatsoever that giving more power to our spies, who already have extraordinary powers, is necessary to prevent these or future attacks. Simply put, this bill is a power grab on the part of our national security agencies. It is going to chill and even criminalize dissent without any evidence that any of us will be safer.
I'm Josh Patterson, P-A-T-E-R-S-O-N, and I am the Executive Director of the BC Civil Liberties Association. The BC Civil Liberties Association takes the position that this bill is dangerous for democracy. It's going to violate the rights of Canadians in many different ways, and the government has provided no justification whatsoever to show that any of these measures are going to make Canadians safer.
The biggest threat facing us right now, in this moment, is Bill C-51. That the biggest threat facing us right now is not the ideology of jihadi terrorism, it is the ideology of the Harper regime. It is an ideology which seeks to breed fear between us, to question each other, to question your neighbor, to breed distrust and to breed xenophobia. And that is why, when we gather in spaces like this as a community of concerned individuals who recognize the detrimental effects of this bill, we must speak out also against the racism and Islamophobia that is embedded within this bill. You can't do one without the other.
My name is Hassan, and I was asked to speak here on behalf of the Muslim community by the organizers.
And why is it important to have the Muslim community represented at the Bill C-51 rally?
Well, I mean, important for various reasons. I guess the number one reason is that if you look at the rhetoric behind this bill and how the Harper government is trying to justify it, it's all based on a rhetoric of Islamophobia, or a rhetoric which is telling us that the biggest threat facing Canada right now is Islam, Muslims, and radical jihadis. So the very bill is predicated upon Islamophobia, and you can just imagine that if it's being predicated on this Islamophobia, if it's brought into reality, what the actual effects of it will be. And like I said in my speech, we don't need to speculate about that. We've seen it ever since 9/11, how the Muslim community has been targeted by the Canadian government through racial profiling.
What do you think is the reality of the Canadian government's involvement with funding and arming and aiding the Islamic State in places like Syria? Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm sorry, I'm not very familiar with that at all. Yeah.
Well, I'll let you know that the Canadian government has been arming and aiding groups such as ISIS and ISIL, and literally funding them and training them in places like Syria and Iraq. What are your thoughts about the Canadian government being that involved to that extent?
Sure, I mean, I know there was recently that the Turkey apprehended a CSIS agent over there who was under allegations that he was helping to traffic people into there. I mean, I think their involvement, or whatever it may be, speaks to the fact that the biggest threat to Canada right now isn't Muslims, it is the Harper government itself.
What sort of things do people need to do to protect activists, to protect the rights of people online? Where do we go from here?
Well, ultimately, if this bill isn't stopped now, and if it's not repealed in future or substantially amended, then it may come down to the courts and constitutional challenges on various provisions of the bill. Of course, that's very costly for citizens and civil society. It's time-consuming, but it doesn't, it may be that Canadians aren't left with other options for protecting their rights and will have to resort to the courts.
So to close off, I'll borrow the words of my friend Alex Neve, who is the Secretary General of Amnesty International in Canada. And he wrote yesterday, after his disappointing appearance at committee, "This government isn't listening. We need to be louder." Thank you.